Welcome to Bloom. My guest today is Stepanka Kudalova, a Czech native who now lives in Devon, England, which is quite a jump. And she is a hypnotherapist coach or a hypno coach. Would you call it that way? And
Yes.
she calls herself, which I actually like better, a mindset and energy alchemist. And she empowers ambitious women, creatives, solopreneurs, and is in the business of shattering glass ceilings in your life. So that is my introduction to you, but you do so many different things that I leave it up to you to decide what you want to share with our audience. Over to you.
Thank you so much for having me and for this opportunity to have a conversation with you. Really looking forward to it. And when it comes to my work, my business, all the ways I support my clients, it's really hard to put it into words and explain it well. But that's why I chose the name or the description energy and mindset alchemist, because it's such a deep alchemy working with clients. And I feel like even hypnotherapy is an inner alchemy, right? We are rewiring our beliefs, the way we respond, the way we process emotions. So the way I would describe it in a few more words would be that I help my clients to spot and find their blind spots and take it to the next level, rewire that and change that and help them do the things they consciously say they want to do. But on a deeper subconscious level, something is holding them back. And I am a clinical hypnotherapist and also a mindset coach. And I qualified in EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, which honestly is a technique I had been using since I was about 17. So that was the tool I had been using from quite a young age, thanks to my dad, who booked me for a session when I was a teenager. And it's only a few years back that I actually officially qualified, but because it's been such a great tool in my own life, I use it with my clients as well, amongst other modalities and certifications. Because once you are in this sort of work, you want to constantly educate yourself and take yourself to the next level, not just for your clients, but also because you are hungry for knowledge. You are really passionate about the human mind, about the nervous system,
Mm.
and see what it is that can help you and your clients more.
And I really like that we had many conversations because we share so many aspects and we both mix a lot of methods and we don't have a script. And I think that comes out of experience and comes out of this curiosity of,
Mhm.
in methods and in new developments and in the human being that is in front of us that always has a very individual set of problems and such a personality that mixes with whatever's going on in a very specific way.
Yeah.
So I find that distinguishes you from many other people or therapists or coaches I've talked to that um, don't have that capacity to then alchemize their methods for the individual. And this sensing what is actually needed and appropriate for the situation and for that client, I think is very much a sensitive skill. And
Beautifully said. And we can probably agree on the fact that that's probably one of the biggest superpowers of highly sensitive people, and be really in tune with other people. And I think that's where my genius comes through. It's in those moments when I actually don't follow anything scripted, and it's just me and the client, and it's like I know what to say during EFT tapping sessions. Again, not following a script there. And clients are always like, how do you know what to say? Like, I couldn't have said it better myself. How do you know, how did you nail this visualization in a hypnosis? I felt fearful just hearing that. So I think that's, you beautifully said that.
I think if sensitives that work with other people could hone that skill, could find confidence in that skill, their work would already take a big leap. I think that is one of the glass ceilings that individuals have if they don't understand their sensitivity and are just afraid of it, and don't get this incredible gift of being plugged into the energy field. And you do that really, really well. I would
And so
like
do
to.
you. And so do you.
Thank you. And I would like to take this back to a time in your life when you had what you call a mysterious and severe health problem, and you needed to overcome it. And in the health system as it existed at that time, you could not find the right kind of support. And if I understood that correctly, that was like an initiation for you. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I would say that was probably one of the key awakening moments for me in so many different ways. And I think you are someone who will really understand that. But it was a big awakening moment in terms of me realizing that the healthcare system isn't set up to actually support us with many mental health problems, as well as I felt like, why did nobody like tell me before, like that we can be this powerful, that our mind can be this powerful, as well as awakening to my own mission, as well as to like what I would like to be doing. So it was a big moment for me. And looking back, reflecting back, so much happened in like 6 months of my life during that time. And it started when I started studying at university in Prague. And funnily enough, I studied German language and Germanic literature. It was something I was really passionate about. But it was probably a safer choice as well. I did want to study psychology, and I felt like, oh, I'm not good enough. I haven't got it in me. And German language was the thing that was effortless for me at school, and literature was something I loved, so I chose that. And as soon as I moved into the student accommodation and started going to classes, I started having those mysterious health problems out of the blue. Every food I would eat would make me feel sick. I literally would be physically sick after eating most of the things. I had high fevers on and off, on and off. If you saw me, I looked awful. I looked really ill. I remember my cousin who I was living with at the time, who was a year older, also studying at uni in Prague. She was just like, oh my gosh, you look so ill. I would be green and blue, and I had no energy, and I didn't know like when I could be potentially sick again. So this was on and off, and it wouldn't go away. It didn't just go away after a week or two. It got slightly better. I feel like the first 2 weeks were really difficult. And of course, when it continued, I booked myself with my doctor, and he referred me to specialists, and I had various different tests done. And when the results came back, the answer was like, physiologically, there is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with your body. Your body seems to be healthy. So my GP said, like, could it be your nerves? But that's where he left it. And I didn't know what to do. And I remember coming back home and thinking, like, how am I going to get over this? Like, I thought maybe there was something wrong and he was going to fix it or make suggestions and nothing. So I'm like, I feel really alone. I feel like I don't actually know how to take action on this. Like, how am I going to fix it? And a few weeks later, as the universe would have it, something quite magical happened. I ended up by accident at a yoga class. It wasn't anything I was planning on. And I had been interested in yoga, but not very much. It was taught by a professor at the university. So I went there. And at the very end, she said, if you have got extra 20 minutes, any of you stay here and I've got a special surprise for you.
Mm.
So I stayed there after the class. I lied down on the yoga mat and she started playing an MP3 recording or a CD recording of some sorts. And within minutes, and this sounds like a cliche, within minutes, I felt so different. And there was a voice at the back of my mind telling me, Stepanka, pay attention. This is really important. And I can't explain it to you. I somehow knew this was not only a life-changing moment, but like, pay attention, you'll be doing this in the future. It was so clear. And I didn't know how, I didn't know any details, didn't know anything about it. But I felt so good in my own body. And I remember thinking, like, I didn't know I could feel this good in my own body after this relaxation technique or whatever, I didn't know what to call it. I felt so present. It's almost like, oh my gosh, I'm so grounded in my body. And I went back home and I was just blown away. I just wanted to learn more about these sort of techniques. And I memorized it. And for a week, every morning, every evening, I took myself through this relaxation process and all these health problems went away just like that. And it was such a big moment for me. I just wanted to know what else is possible. If I can change my health, if I can change how I was feeling in under a week by doing a visualization technique, like what else could I achieve? What else would be possible? And I just went into the library, got loads of books and was trying to find out what this was and how I could apply it to my life. And a few months later, I could no longer relate to the university degree I was studying. I just wanted to be doing something like this to help other people, to help myself, and just get more education on that. But I didn't quite know how to do that yet.
Yeah, but isn't that fascinating, that voice that so many of us hear? I just had a conversation with a client today, being a man who would hardly want to admit to it, but he said, I have this nagging thing telling me to adjust and change something. And so many of us disconnect with that. And you luckily didn't. But in a way, your body made it very, very clear, that it was very much worthwhile listening to that voice. And I find that so fascinating about your story. And then there's another part of it, and we had, longer conversations about that, and that is the insanity of the health system that we have that will say your body is healthy, it's just your nerves. I mean, anybody who has studied the body and the brain knows the importance of the nervous system and the influence that has on the entire body, and that many times that is where deep disease starts. And it is beyond me that you will still have doctors say that. I don't, your take on that, being a professional who works with nerves, what's your take on that for our audience?
We already know that the disease or the thing that like impacts us the most or impacts our health is stress. We know that's like the biggest killer, so to speak, of people. It's stress because it's related to so many physical symptoms. And to me, it's incredible. And I believe and I hope that there is more awareness in the medical system now, and more people are aware of that innate connection between the mind and the physical body. But it's just very interesting because we are capable of so much simply by directing our thoughts. There are studies and research done on different things, even like increasing the amount of white blood cells in your bloodstream and using hypnosis to increase that number. And then, they took another sample and it literally showed that it's possible. And I just find it so interesting. So how is it that we are not using it more in our medical system? And the power of the mind, and having treated people with things such as IBS, right? So they often end up going to doctors for years and trying so many different things, when we know that it's about, 80% of that is usually the mind. And for example, IBS is something that can be treated with hypnosis very effectively, just because it is so deeply connected with the mind and with the nervous system.
Thank you for that explanation. And that takes me to the next question, and that is, you have a very interesting take on hypnosis. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, so hypnosis is something that is surrounded by a lot of misconceptions. We could even say that maybe like the top modality in the healing world that is just surrounded by so many myths and misconceptions due to how it had been portrayed in the entertainment industry, in different films and movies. And it had been seen as this thing that can control you, and a hypnotist can control your mind and make you do things you don't want to do. But now, after a lot of studies and research, we know that that is not simply the case. Hypnosis, well, every hypnosis is self-hypnosis. It's you doing it. And I really love that about hypnotherapy, because I think that's what drew me in. That's what got me really excited, because it's not about giving all of your power over to a hypnotherapist and thinking like, oh, it's only because this hypnotherapist that I achieved this. No, it's you doing that process. A hypnotherapist is merely someone who is guiding you, but you can also walk away from sessions with a hypnotherapist with new skills, with a new skill set that you learn for yourself, that you can continue applying if you need it in the future. But I feel like another thing you might have been referring to is that I often find that when people say hypnotherapy, and funnily enough, it happened to me 2 weeks ago, when I was having a conversation in this group, and someone approached me about hypnosis, what they actually meant was regression.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
yeah.
yeah, and I think a lot of people associate the word hypnosis with regression, which we could say is a thing on its own, or we could say it is a technique that can be used within hypnotherapy. And regression means that we are taking you, guiding you to a past moment. And people often think it's got to be the childhood, the sort of things you have forgotten and you are not consciously aware of it. But then people also think of past life regression, and let's find a root cause to what you are experiencing right now in a past life, and let's see what comes up. So there is a lot to do with that. Also, like when you were a baby in your mother's womb, like people have regression to those moments. And as I said, we can say regression can be used within hypnosis and is often used within hypnosis. To me, it's not the number one technique. It's not really something I focused on that much. Of course, I focused on the past and on my clients' past and perhaps traumatic experiences and so on. But I find that when someone is just all about regression, it can also become this chase, like you chasing that.
Yes, I love that. You call it chasing the never-ending root cause. I really love that. I want to say that again for everybody that's listening, is beware of chasing the never-ending root cause, because it keeps you in a loop of having to fix something rather than healing.
Yeah.
And that is the sentence you gave me, and I love it.
I'm so glad it resonated, because I actually find that it's when I work with fellow therapists or healers or some sort of practitioners, they often want to find that root cause and regress me back and take me back. Let's find it. The thing is, if we are constantly looking for something, we will find something. And then there is also the line like, when it maybe is not healthy for you to be constantly telling yourself that there is something I am not consciously aware of that is still blocking me. And I am also not dismissing trauma from childhood. I am not dismissing regression in general, but for me, I really like to focus on the present. And when someone starts working with me, I will actually focus on changing their maybe emotional response, their inner dialogue, their nervous system first, because that will be an immediate win. They will start feeling better. And if we do need to go back or we need to focus on other things, it will be easier. You know, you will boost a client's confidence this way. You will give them an immediate improvement of some sorts, which feels really good. And it makes the client feel empowered. I find that some approaches to therapy, to healing, to hypnotherapy can be a little disempowering.
Yes.
Because it's like, it's until I find this root cause, I can't feel better. I can't move forward. I can't make an improvement. The thing is, when I have a client who comes to me with insomnia and they are exhausted, they are tired, it's been just overwhelming and nothing is helping, I will actually focus on helping them a little bit right away, right? Giving them a little bit of a relief. Helping them to reclaim their power, to program their body, to program their mind so they can start feeling a little better. Instead of, okay, let's just do a lot of digging right away. I think that can be more of a holistic approach in my eyes in one way or another. And I remember a moment when I worked with this incredible woman, and she is amazing at what she does, but it was this thing. She wanted to speak publicly, but she was really frightened, a huge fear around speaking on stage. But her personal practice, her physical in-person practice has just grown to hundreds of clients, and she wanted to make a bigger impact and do bigger things and potentially write a book and speak on stage and actually do this like a immersive theater experience, and you've got to be on stage. So I was going to focus on that and help her regain power and start practicing and rehearsing and teaching her nervous system that you can feel safe while doing this. Because that's what fears and phobias are. There is this thing like, I'm not safe. You know, and there is a connection between a thing, let's say speaking on stage, and nervous system just being in fight or flight or freeze and feeling really uncomfortable, having physical symptoms and all of that. So I was going to help her focus on that, but she said, no, I'm not ready for that yet. I've already done past life regression. I've already done this and that. And then she listed about 15 different therapies looking for this root cause. And she said, we already found this root cause, that root cause, and this thing. And I already have all these memories from my childhood that I retrieved. But I know there is something else. And that's why I'm here, because I think hypnosis will be the best thing to help me find this. And I really felt like she doesn't want to move forward just yet.
Yeah.
She's not actually ready to move forward, and this feels very comforting. Chasing that never-ending root cause, it's like a loop, a comfort loop, and it feels easier to do that and dig into uncomfortable memories than to actually, okay, let's focus on how we could take a baby step towards this goal.
Yeah, if the fear is so big, it feels more comfortable to keep chasing something, because you don't really have to start moving the furniture.
That's a good expression.
Yeah. So what I like in this context also, and I know that is something that many people experience, you know, there was this huge hype on affirmations, and for many people, affirmations in themselves don't work. And I know that you said you had that experience and that was very fruitful for you in working with your clients. Could you expand a bit on that?
Yes. So this actually takes me back to my mid-20s. And I was, once again, struggling with some health problems. But this time around, these were quite severe gynecological health problems. I had a very long period for over a year and bleeding for over a year.
It's exhausting.
And absolutely exhausting. Not getting answers, having to go through all the hoops in the NHS here in the UK, the national healthcare system. It was frustrating. It was very difficult. Even just getting an ultrasound is just so difficult over here. And I
remember.
Yeah, you know all about it. It was very different to the Czech Republic when I could call up my gynecologist and get an appointment, and if it's something as serious, like you would get an appointment right away. And it's like in 3 months' time, you can come to the hospital and have an ultrasound. And when I'm saying I'm having a 1.5 year long period, it's heavy bleeding. And there were times when I couldn't go to work. I would just have to stay at home. And this was a time in my life that really tested me emotionally, like nothing else. Because I couldn't go out, I couldn't have fun, I couldn't just say to my friends, yeah, let's go out on Friday, because I would have to see how bad or how good it was on that day and see if I can actually go out. It led to a lot of embarrassing moments, when out and about. It was just very, very challenging, as well as pain I was having in my lower abdomen. It was very difficult. And during that time, I was already studying hypnosis, almost finished with hypnotherapy, in fact. And I already was familiar with a lot of tools, but all of a sudden, it was just, I was so far into the so-called negative emotions, more like depression. There were days when I really struggled to get up, and it impacted my body. I had acne, my hair was falling out, I had no energy. It just loads was going on in my body, and I wasn't getting any answers, which obviously makes it a little more frustrating. And I had to learn how do I navigate my life, having all these symptoms and waiting and not knowing what is actually going on with my body. And I realized that a lot of the tools I was familiar with were not actually working for me. How is it possible? How is it possible that things such as positive affirmations, mirror work, you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're repeating positive affirmations, it actually made me feel worse. There were visualization techniques that I used to love. I would go and sit down, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get behind it. And I never really heard anyone speak about it, because you get told, like, change your emotions, change your state. And I would do the positive affirmations, I would do the positive visualization, and I felt worse. I felt like crying, because instead of it helping me feel better, it was highlighting the gap between where I was and where I wanted to be. Why I mentioned to you the affirmations in particular, because that was my breaking moment. I remember one morning, I'll never forget that morning, because it was a shift in my life. I realized something about the self-help world that day. I got up and I tried using my mind to feel better. But when you've been bleeding, let's say at that point for 8 months, doctors are just messing with you, canceling your appointments. You're just trying to get some sort of a doctor to notice you. I ended up going private. It wasn't helping anyway. So I would get up every morning, I would write down my positive affirmations, then I would say them out loud. I would do my visualization. I was really trying to keep my spirits high, because I saw myself drifting towards depression at that point. And closing off, not being able to socialize, it does isolate you as well. So it was really a dark night of the soul for me during that time. And that particular morning, I did my affirmations and I just bursted into tears. I couldn't hold it anymore. And that feeling I had was just like, why are you pretending? You're not feeling healthy. You're not feeling confident. You're not feeling glowing. And that's what I kept repeating. And I was trying to say that and say things about my body. My body is healing quickly. I have a beautiful and regular cycle. And it just felt so icky. It felt like I was trying to lie to myself, and it actually was pushing me more out of alignment. And that's looking back that day, I ended up calling in sick. I was in such a state that day. I couldn't go to work. I was just I fell into pieces that day. And it really made me think about self-help and the positive affirmations and the overall positive attitude, where we really try to take ourselves from, let's say, a depressed state and be high vibe, be positive vibes only right away. The thing is, it's a journey. It's not a quick fix. It's more of a, if you feel 1% better, that's amazing. And that's not a failure. And it's also okay, to accept the emotions that you are having. And I really was trying to make myself jump into high positivity states right away. And I realized later on, it's not about forcing myself into positivity. It's more about just helping myself feel tiny bit better. So instead of saying, oh, I'm feeling healthy, wealthy, amazing, confident, and magnetic, it would be like, I will be okay. Stepanka, you've got this, and one day it will be okay. It might not be okay today. It might not be okay on this day, but you will eventually get better. Like, it's got to happen. And it really took the pressure of myself to feel positive and to have this high vibe routine in the morning and do all the right things. And it was also time when perhaps EFT, emotional freedom technique, was something that was helping me a little more, but not in terms of pushing myself to feel amazing or put any sort of pretend that just did not feel right. So I would be just tapping on like processing the emotions and allowing them to be there.
I really like that when you explained that to me, and that is also my experience with my clients and obviously with myself, is if something feels too positive for the state that we're in, and especially for our body, the system will reject it. It's like a knee-jerk reaction because the energy cannot be integrated. So actually, we're almost regressing if we do that. And that insanity about affirmations is that they're always in the mega version. I'm 100% healthy, and I am going to be the star of the show, and I'm this, and many times what you describe, these steps in between, this acclimatization, you would probably say in English, from one state to the other, that needs, in most cases, I mean, miracles exist, but that in most cases that needs to happen. Like the state shift you had in your first experience was like this. But the second time you learned something else. The second time you learned my body needs to keep up with healing. And my mind can only take me that far. And that is something I really am passionate about, that there needs to be more consideration for the body and for the processes of the body. And I know that you talked a lot about the mind and hypnotherapy, but from what I've understood, you have integrated the body. And you don't just take it from the mind. And one word you use is body attunement. And I really like that you have that depth of understanding of the process of healing.
Yeah, because I feel you do that as well in your work. When I was tuning into your podcast episodes, and it's like you consider these things as well. And I think for maybe you and I, when these days when we see the nervous system regulation, how hyped up it has become on social media and in modern literature. But for many of us, it's been something we've been working with for years, right? It's not like a new thing that just got discovered.
That is true. And it's, I think it's come out of experience, our own experience with the health system that does not function, with methods that don't work if you take them in isolation. I mean, I learned that painfully and you learned it painfully. So we were curious, just like you described it. Since we're coming to the end of this podcast, there's one thing I definitely want to talk to you about, and that is about money. And I know you've just created a new product around that. And I really liked that you described, you're not the first person to do that, but you said money is a type of power. And I just would like to spend a brief amount of time about why you built that new product and why that is so, this aspect of money being power and sensitive people usually being disempowered about money. And can you just explain a little bit why you built that and what the connection to the body is?
So I believe we are in the middle of a worldwide awakening. There is a shift upon us. It's been already happening. More of it will happen. And we are realizing that many of the things around money, around abundance, the kind of things that we have been made to believe are not actually serving us. We are not going to make a difference by not having money, by struggling and suffering. We can make a difference in many other ways, but there are also certain things that can be done with money. Whether it's how you spend your money, whether you actually have the budget to support your local community. I am someone, who always tries to buy in my closest areas because I don't want independent businesses to disappear. And I believe it is a type of power. It is also how we vote every single day in many different ways, who I can support, what business I support, where I donate, or if I have enough, not just to cover my basic needs. There is a movement you can create with the money. There is ways of how you can invest. And I feel like these days we are also becoming a lot more aware of ethical investments and that investing into a company that aligns with your values actually feels much more expansive. I think like the era of individual success is gone. We no longer just want to make it for ourselves. We don't just want to have all the money in the world and like see the world suffer. I feel like there is so many sensitive people right now realizing that we are powerful together and there is so much we can change with the everyday things we do, as well as with investing our money in companies or using it to start something or develop something, if you like. So that is something that I believe can really help sensitive people. Realize that it's not a greedy thing that you want more. It's not, it doesn't make you a negative person. And I remember the first time I consciously realized I had huge money blocks was when I wanted to apply to study hypnosis and I realized I didn't have the money. And I sat down and I worked out how I would be able to save up for it. And I realized like that would take so long. Like I wouldn't be able to even start studying this year and maybe not even the next year when the course opens again. Because with the money I was making at that point, the amount of money I had to use to cover my basics, basically, and I wasn't living like a luxurious lifestyle at all or traveling a lot, no. It was almost impossible for me to like sign up and get started. And I'm like, okay, well, how could I receive more money? And the response within my body was like, oh, that's greedy. That's horrible. What about all the other people who haven't got money? And I think that is sometimes such a beautiful thing about us sensitive people, because we are so attuned to other people. We are so caring, and it can be almost overwhelming. When you see something beautiful in life that's also a little sad or nostalgic, there is such a variety of feelings you feel in that moment, and it makes life very rich if you allow yourself to feel all of it. But it can also feel overwhelming at a time. And I think with money and with me not wanting to receive more, it was actually connected to how much I cared about other people and what I thought having more money would mean for them. What if I take from other people? I would not want that. Like, I live an okay life. I don't have to have more, so to speak. And then the hypnosis bundle you mentioned, that is something I developed because I realized that it's not just about consciously deciding this is the amount I want to attract or this is the number I want to see in my bank account. There can once again be almost like the physical reaction that we don't actually want it. So on a conscious level, we're saying one thing, but that nervous system is like, oh, no, that doesn't feel safe. I'm not used to it, or it's too much out there, or it's too out of our comfort zone. So we stay around the familiar things, whether it's the same number of clients, whether it's the same number of money, or like the same number in your saving account. And then something usually happens. You will manifest a disaster, you will manifest a bill. So you bring it down, it's that thermostat of how good we are allowed to feel, so to speak, like the upper limit problem, if you like. And it shows up in money as well. And I find that when we include the nervous system and we bring in, let's say, visualizations around those goals, we are teaching the body it's safe. It's okay. Like, you haven't got to fight it. And it can actually be more than safe. So that's what really inspired me, because I saw it with myself. I saw it with my clients. And when I started my business about a year in, the first year was a big struggle for me. And then one afternoon, I ended up signing up quite a few clients in one afternoon, and I couldn't believe it. But this woman said yes, signed up for a 3 month package, paid in full. The next woman said yes, signed up for a 3 month package. The next thing, my group program filled up, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And I remember the response in my body was like, I don't think you can receive it.
Yes.
Like panic. And in that moment, I realized what upper limit feels like around money. I knew it logically. I knew, like, oh yeah, it's like you don't want to receive it. It's like resistance towards the thing you wanted. So I actually hit a goal. It was more, I made more money than like a few of the months prior to that altogether. And there was just like so much like scarcity, fear, all of these things started coming up, and it just did not feel real. It did not feel like I could have it, I could accept it. And that's what inspired me. That's what motivated me to develop something like that, so I could help myself and then others.
It's so fascinating how when we finally allow ourselves to feel what our body has to say about our thoughts and about what we manifest, we actually get to the root. we can actually start changing if we do not push that away in terms of, I'm having a panic attack, so it must be bad. No, I'm having a panic attack because my system is overwhelmed with the positive stuff coming into my life, as absurd as it might sound. So to wrap this up, that my last question is there anything we did not talk about that you think is important to mention in this context? I know we covered a lot, so there might not be anything. I just want to give you the opportunity.
Yeah, maybe actually there is one thing, because what I really loved is how much you put into this podcast. You come to every interview, it can be felt from your episodes, you come with so much intentionality to these episodes. And when we decided on the date, you sent me this beautiful questionnaire, if you like, or potential questions that we might cover. And you shared it with me and you said, well, it's something you can reflect upon over a couple of days and see what comes up for you. It's not really something you've got to write down or like brainstorm really hard, but it's like once you read those questions, something opens up. And I really experienced that, because when I was reading through it, it reminded me of perhaps something that could be important for us highly sensitive people. So I thought maybe I'll mention it if you don't mind.
Sure. No, of course I don't.
You asked things such as how did you know you were different? Or how did you know perhaps not everyone around you was feeling or processing emotions and life experiences in a different way. And I've realized that it was actually down to the adults around me, which can be a good thing, but it can also be a little bit of a negative thing. I remember it came from my parents a lot when they would tell me like, oh, but you know what you are like, you wouldn't enjoy this. Or they would say, oh, you're not as confident as your sister, you are too sensitive for this. Or you could feel upset after watching this film because you are so sensitive. And it's obviously they cared. They wanted to protect me. But I also remember taking on these stories a lot more, or seeing me being very sensitive as something negative, or even something you could get punished for on occasions as well, for crying too much or for taking things too personally. But I just thought it's something to reflect upon for all of us sensitive beings, that some of the stories we received maybe came from the adults around us when growing up.
Well, I thank you for that, because in a way that imprint is also a form of hypnosis. If you're being told many, many, many times that's how you are, and that's what you can do, and that's what you can't do, it goes into your subconscious. It becomes part of your belief system because it's there almost underneath your skin. You know, it's in
You
homeopathic
identify with
doses,
it.
but repeated again and again. So it has something of hypnosis, I think. I don't know what you think, but
Yeah, repetition, and especially at a young age. And when it comes from someone who you see as an authority, who you see as someone who you trust. And I thought about, how did it impact me the most? Maybe in some ways, I don't even know how it impacted me, right? I can't work it all out. But one thing for sure was like speaking in front of groups and other people. Because my parents would like encourage me not to do that, because you know what you like, you're very sensitive, you're not as confident, and my sister is just an extrovert. I am an introvert, so I feel like they would always compare us, like, you know, she's an extrovert, she enjoys these sort of things. But in fact, I like talking. You know, I like presenting things in front of groups, and it's something I worked out later on in life. And I realized this fear is not mine. This story is not mine. I love connecting with people by speaking and presenting something. And in fact, in like my career prior to running my own business, even when I studied, it was something I actually excelled at, you know, and was able to present really well and have the confidence.
yes. So, sort of in a way to wrap it up, it is very important to understand which are the experiences that shaped you from the outside, because like people kept repeating it to you, but like you said, they don't really belong to you. And what is intrinsically you, or something you were born with, or something that like traumatic that happened, like a car accident or something, that you can actually find the so-called root cause, and to then at a certain point decide, if I understood you correctly, to take the power back to yourself and to
I
work,
think you said it beautifully just then.
and to work with people that have that understanding, that it is really about supporting you and getting rid of what you definitely need to get rid of in order to be free, and then support you on your path of empowering yourself.
I think this is very interesting, the way you worded the root cause. Sometimes there is like a rapid event, like one thing, such as, you know, a difficult car accident, for example. And other times it happens step by step. It doesn't happen overnight. It's different. There are layers to it. It's the stories we take on, and it shapes who we are. And I think that's why sometimes it's impossible to find one root cause to one
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, Stepanka, I thank you from the heart. And I, as always, enjoyed this thoroughly. And thank you so much for having been